Just 2.5 hours now until President Trump sits down with New York City Mayor-elect and self-described socialist, other people describe him as a communist, Zohran Mamdani, a meeting that will highlight a growing divide in American politics. Mamdani posting this selfie earlier as he flew to Washington. Is that first class? Got to double check. Yesterday, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said that the meeting shows that President Trump is committed to governing for all Americans. Watch.
It speaks volumes that tomorrow we have a communist coming to the White House because that's who the Democrat Party elected as the mayor of the largest city in the country. It speaks to the fact that President Trump is willing to meet with anyone and talk to anyone and to try to do what's right on behalf of the American people, whether they live in blue states or red states.
Yeah, Commie Mamdani goes to Washington. Now, he's changed his tune on President Trump in recent months, going from outright hostility to saying that he is willing to work with his president.
My administration would be Donald Trump's worst nightmare. I intend to make it clear to President Trump that I will work with him on any agenda.
Meanwhile, one of Mamdani's allies, New York Congresswoman AOC, is reserving judgment on today's meeting.
Obviously, the mayor-elect is going to be is preparing for his inauguration. Of course, he's indicated that he's willing to sit down with anybody and everybody. I think he let Zohran lead. He's been elected to lead New York City. I trust him as the mayor-elect, and he'll do what he thinks is best for the city of New York. He, as a mayor-elect, is making decisions for what he thinks is best for the city, so we'll see how it goes.
Cheryl, you were on this from the beginning.
Oh, I have
from
so much
minute
to
one.
say.
Tell
Actually,
us.
the best line about today's meeting is from the New York Post editorial board. And they said, running a city isn't about dorm room thought experiments. The job is first and foremost about collecting trash, dealing with the rats, teaching kids, and securing the streets and the subway. Oh, and keeping the city open for business. There are billions of reasons why Zohran Mamdani is at the White House today meeting with President Trump hat in hand, and he asked for this meeting. To be clear, one thing I would love to see President Trump, though, do today is to drill it into his head. Forget the rent freeze nonsense. You can't even do it. You do not. That board is not controlled by Mamdani. It's an independent board. Open the city to the developers, work with real estate developers to build more housing in this city. Regular marketplace apartments, not rent controlled, not rent freezing. His whole plan is ridiculous. But look, Trump has said, I'll cut off federal funding, and Mamdani knows it. So he's going hand in hand right now.
What do you see, quick follow-up, in the way of, like, the circus around it? Do you think Mamdani is going to, like, take a bunch of selfies with the president and exploit it and try to bring this austere office holder into his orbit of, like, kitschiness?
I think he'll make a few TikTok videos. Of course he will. He's already putting that selfie with that silly grin on his face from the plane this morning. Yeah. But it should be a serious conversation. Look, Donald Trump built a lot of this city. He is a developer, a lot of the buildings, a lot of he is New York's native son with 50 years. Not 50 years, 40-something years of age over Mamdani. Mamdani needs to sit back and listen. I think Trump can teach him a few things today.
Molly, in my abject despair after he was elected, a lot of people around me here were like, it's okay, it's okay. Like, his power is limited. There's only so much destruction that he can sort of levy. Do you agree with that? And do you think that part of this will be the checks and balances he's about to encounter in the Oval Office, where the city can only do so much without federal dollars? How do you see that playing out?
I think sometimes people say things like that to cope with how bad the situation is. And a lot of our cities are in these socialist death spirals where you have socialist policies enacted, they fail, and then people respond to affordability problems by electing someone even more radical. It's not just happening in New York, it's happening out on the West Coast, Seattle. We just saw this happen. And so people should care about it because the failure of our cities are a really big deal. And this guy is very good with aesthetics. People who want to defeat him should care about that and try to match his aesthetics. But they should also remember that socialism and communism only work with other people's money. Yes, he's bending the knee to President Trump, but that's because he needs our money to help subsidize what he wants to do here.
He can be successful in trying to raise Elizabeth Street Garden, which we just got back to the city. Like, we just got it protected. I mean, he's already horrifyingly attempting to just raise this entire coffee things that are so special here, you know?
Yeah, it's like the political version of syrup of Ipecac. Everything just makes you vomitous.
Yeah.
And so much can go wrong. You know, it's like you look around, 8 million people, it's a lot of New Yorkers to govern. And he is inviting the tax base to leave. He knows that. He has been warned by developers and people who have tried for years to bring capital to this city, which used to stand for the generation of wealth. And now it's about redistribution and the destruction of wealth. And they're not going to veer from that. And in terms of cheap housing, if you want to build cheap housing, you have to get through the unions. And the DSA, they love their unions. And so they're going to do whatever they can. It's like, okay, but you are making labor so much more expensive, and you are generating these rules that make it absolutely prohibitive to build anything even slightly affordable. It is because of those government-imposed leftist structures that people cannot afford to live here.
Yes. Are you guys in the Bay just like, hold our beer? Because you've been going through this for a while now, and we're like panicking, and you're like...
It's weird when I want to see a worse governed city, I go to New York City now. I used to just go to Oakland.
Totally.
I think this puts Donald Trump in a bit of a bind. Right? Donald Trump's elected to represent the country as a whole, not some narrow little slice of, leftist elites in this very blue city. So what does he do? Does he, like Molly suggested, cut off funding to the city on transportation, on education, to compel New York to improve itself? Or does he cover up for how bad it's going to be? For example, does he surge National Guard units or ICE agents to make up for the huge decline in public safety that's going to be coming? Does he try to implement favorable, investment policies to make up for the capital thievery that's going to go on in New York City in the next few years? Does Donald Trump, push the city farther to improve itself, or does he bail them out himself? I don't know what he's going to choose to do.
I don't know, but I sort of hope that he starves us out, because then it will show how incompetent, ill-equipped, and inexperienced and unable Mamdani is to actually govern this city. If President Trump fills the gap, I don't think the whole country will see how devastating Mamdani's reign will be. I might change my mind later. That's how I feel in this moment. Hey, everyone. I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.